Thank you. Thank you for making it to the end of the day. Yeah, I want to talk about how Another Axiom approaches building games. So a little bit about me. I'm Dave Neubelt. I spent a big part of my career making Sony-first games, IPs for Sony, and then we took a shot at making our own AAA IP. At the end of that, had a little bit of time. We had a native engine, and so I ported it to the DK2. And at the time, I had a little guy with spheres floating around. We had like a gamepad hitting the bumpers, and it put out little spheres to grab through because they didn't have touch controllers at that point. And that became Lone Echo. Along through the project, we were over scope, over budget. Me and my colleague had a great idea. It's like, well, what would help out is if we made it multiplayer. It doesn't help, actually, but we made Echo VR, and I'm really proud of it, because that's where I met Karastal, who is, the creator of Gorilla Tag. He was a VR esport world champion twice, and we used to talk in-game, in VR, all the time. And at the same time, the person who published it, other founder, we got together and we, formed Another Axiom to take it from 3 people to, I guess, over 100 people touching all of our products today. And we just launched Orion Drift, so that's kind of, and I want to talk about our, journey. So, XR is awesome. I love it. But it's hard. It's hard being in this space today, and I'm super proud to be in a room with all of you who are pushing this forward. But there's some obvious things going on, like the TAM is small. You're not sure what device is going to succeed and whatnot. If you're at GDC, everyone's saying all the publishing deals have dried up, and VCs are looking at the new shiny thing. Go on LinkedIn, studio closures every day, or layoffs, or like if you've been in VR as long as I have, or XR, just people, just naysayers. They're like, VR's dead. Well, it's obviously not dead, right? XR is dead. But, so how do we succeed in this space? And so this is my core belief. We need to, or my belief is that we have to build not just with your community, for your community, you have to build together. And when you build together with your community, you can find innovation, and you can find product market fit. So XR is actually a great space to innovate in. When I was working on a AAA game, it felt like we were in this convex polygon, right, of like, great game over here, great game over here, and you're trying to blend together to get a unique experience, that the players will enjoy. But with XR and VR, there's no great examples to pull from. And that's not true. We're in it now, and there's some shoulders of giants we can stand on. But the space is so unexplored. There's so much potential out there. When we were working on Lone Echo, I remember people saying, you cannot do body. Like, if you put arms in the game, it's going to break presence. Just don't do it. And I believed it. I parroted that. And I'm lucky that our design director was saying, you know what? It's important. If you want to be Jack the Robot, you have to have robot arms. You have to see it. It's important. And I was like, but the elbows. And he's like, we can solve it. So we went to a mocap studio, and we got people on a VR headset, put markers on their arm, and said, just play the game. Play, go through space. And we tracked all the data, ran some machine learning on it, and we predicted the elbows. And it was, it was immature, and like what they do today is way, way better, but it was good enough, right? It was good enough to ship, and it was an important storytelling experience, And movement, I remember at Oculus Connect 2, they came on the stage, and they said, you cannot do anything but teleport. Just don't do it. You're going to make people sick. And then some kid went off, put stick movement into their game, and they made Onward. And they found a community of people that love that game, right? And like all these shooters have existed with stick movement, right? Innovation everywhere. And Karastal made Gorilla Tag. Part of the problem with the Echo movement model is when you grab onto something and you push off, if you don't get your timing right, you might let go a little late, and you'll like pull yourself into the wall, or you'll go off in a wrong direction. And we did lots of focus tests, and we tried to refine the model, and people had a ton of difficulty. But with Gorilla Tag, you reach out and you touch the world. And you don't need to explain that to anyone. You can put your grandma in the headset. You can put a 5-year-old in the headset. In fact, I've seen really, family members put their kids in the headset and they walk up to a wall and the right thing happens, which is they connect with the world. They feel the presence. They feel the world pushing back on them. It's a great innovation. With our next game, I live down in Irvine. There's the great park. It has this huge sports complex with lots of fields, right? And when there's soccer tournaments going on, you walk up and you watch a game. If that one's boring, you walk to another. And we wanted to see what is a social experience like that. It hadn't been done before, at least that I know of. And so we said, we're going to give it a try. There's possibility spaces everywhere. If you look at all these games, they all have highly engaged communities, like puzzling places, great game. People just are waiting for the next set. Or 11 table tennis. That game has been out forever. They keep updating it, and there's such a core, die-hard community that loves that experience, right? There's lots of experiences out there and communities that don't have, something that exists for them. These are great examples of finding, their market fit. So let me talk about Gorilla Tag and how it found its market fit. Kerstill had worked at Workday. He was world champion in Echo. In his free time, he was like, well, I want to make VR better in some way, find my slice of the pie where I can just push it forward a little bit. He tried a spell casting game. That's what Gorilla Tag started as. It didn't really work. But what he did was he dragged his friends from Echo into a private Discord, 6, 10, 20 people, and he forced them to play, right? He's like, you got to play my game. You got to play it, right? And at the time, we had to take an APK and sideload it. And, it wasn't good, and so he would refine it, work on it every day. And eventually, they made a Discord bot to see who was playing. It would say 0, 6, And then eventually, more and more people came in. And what he didn't realize, arguing with the people on Discord and getting into, telling them what's good, what's not, or people playing the game, what he was doing was he was building a community. He was finding that market fit. There was people out there that wanted that experience. He was just building it for himself, right? But what he was doing was he was finding his niche, right? And now today we have like over 500,000 people in our Discord. So we took that indie knowledge, or that indie development methodology, and we instilled it as we grew the studio, and we've iterated on it, and we've kept those core principles, what he was doing. So those are, I'll go over it shortly, starting with our radical transparency, right? I worked on The Order, AAA game, probably 4 years. I don't remember exactly how long. It was a really long time, a lot of crunch. We did focus tests, to refine some parts of the game. You get to the end of it, I had no idea how it was going to do, right? Go to a launch party, reviews come out, it didn't do good. And it hurt, right? And that's a lot of investment, a lot of time to do something to not do it well. On Orion Drift, we got a very small team together, and we made our first playable public build within 3 months. It was as fast as we could do it. It was box cubes, which was not the art direction, but we made Gorilla Tag, who would know, right? They throw a disc in a goal, and we're like, okay, we've got a sport. Who wants to play it? We grabbed 20 people that we thought would like this type of experience, and we brought them into a Discord, and we said, hey, developers, talk to them. Let them play test the game every day, change it. And then we raised the flag. We said, hey, everyone, anyone want to play our game? Come meet us in Vegas, right? 200 VR enthusiasts that want to play that type of game flew themselves out to Vegas, drove, got carpooled, did whatever they did, paid their way to get to Vegas to try our game. Because that's the type of experience that they would want to play. And they loved it. And we gave all those people access to our Discord. And so then we went into this closed early access phase where we'd take 10 people in, or 20, or 30, or towards the end, 100 people. And we kept letting them, show off, the game, right? Even box art or whatever. And if you're a AAA developer, which we had, a handful on our team, they hated it, right? They'd stay up late, and they'd be working, and they'd be like, I need to make it look good. I'm like, no, don't make it look good. Just get it out there, because we might throw it away. And because of the way we did it, allowing people to talk and show off the work, we started building this momentum on this game, started building this ball. And then by year one, we did this wide-scale test. Well, funny enough, you can't really do a wide-scale test with Meta because they have channels. I don't know if there's limits. You can kind of email them. It gets really difficult. So we decided what we're going to do, stealth mode, put the app on the store, don't tell anyone, right? So unless you get a direct link to it, you wouldn't know about it. And if you did get a direct link to it, you could install it. But we added some tech on our side that you would get to the server browser and say, restricted, you need the pass, right, to get into the game. And we thought that was good enough. Well, the link got around, it got shared. All of a sudden, we had like 1,000 people playing our game daily in a shuttle 10 by 10 foot. And you can't do anything. I don't know what they're doing, but they would play 30 minutes at a time, so good for them. But when we open it up, we got, I don't remember how many, but let's say 20,000 people that came in and played. We did have a tech glitch where at one point the servers actually opened for everyone, and we were in a play test, and all of a sudden the public just started showing up. We're like, oh my God, pull the plug, But we went into open early access recently, and we've been continually just to show off the game in its current state as it's being developed. And so the second pillar, engage with your community. And I think this is easier said than done. When I worked on Sony games, you always had certain people who would engage with the community, right? And as a developer, you weren't allowed to, right? Because you didn't have the training. You didn't know what to say. If you couldn't trust the people to say things. But we're like, you know what? Here's the thing. If you make a mistake, we'll say we're sorry, right? We'll teach our people to be better. If we say the wrong thing and promise the wrong thing, you know what? We'll just own up to it. We're human. And I think the audience believes and trusts in us better that we do that. We give things like badges and rewards for our super users. We meet with our community leaders, because we have to scale this, right? We have to scale this engagement. But the most important thing is embedding devs, all of your developers, into Discord. Because if they get input filtered through a community manager, then it might not connect the same way. But if you have a dev working on a sword, and there's a user excited about the sword, they should be talking, because that's your community. And we've tried everything. We've tried AI and sentiment analysis, surveys, UXR studies, but nothing works as good as just talking to people. We also have community-run servers. This is not so funny story because, Echo shut down after, I don't remember how long, 7, 10 years, but there's kids that started the game when they were 12, right? At this really important social age of making friends. They were 18. They went through COVID, right? Where they couldn't see anyone. This was the space that they made to find their community, to build these friends. And when Meta shut it down, there's tears, right? People felt like people were ripped away from them. And Carmack joined the conversation. He wasn't working on it at the time. And he said something like, he said a lot of things, and he always says a lot of things. But one of the things he said was like, our Quake Arena, like, these developers made choices, right? And Quake Arena, for example, it runs, in a shoebox in a closet somewhere, right? And one engineer looks at it. And, that kind of hurt because it wasn't these developers, me, I made that choice, But he was right? Complicated infrastructures mean big companies have to own it, and so in this iteration, we've made a lot of choices to make sure that if we ever go belly up or the game doesn't do well, that we can hand it off to the community to continue running it. But it has a side effect outside of that, which is important, but let's plan for success, not failure, right? Is that now communities can find a space with their people, right? So Girls Who Drift is a great example. When I was working on Echo VR, you would have a girl come into the game, and there'd be a bunch of 13-year-old boys would come attack that person, or even if they attack, maybe they are just being 13-year-old boys, which is nothing wrong with that, right? Kids are going to be kids. But, she doesn't feel safe, or she doesn't find her people, right? And so she's not going to play the game. So now you have this momentum of creating a community that is targeted at this major demographic. So with this, we have Girls Who Drift is great, right? They have made a safe space, and their community is growing week over week, right? There's Beer League's my favorite because, there's people that don't like playing VR, but also during COVID, they made friends, they bought the headset, and they'll, dust it off their closet on a Friday night and play some drinking games and some sports, even if they're bad at it. And of course, comp is interesting because you could build comp into your game or leagues into your game, but that's very difficult. It's a lot of manpower to do. If you just open it up and allow them to run their own rules, their own leagues, their own formats, then it takes pressure off the dev team, but also it flourishes new communities. Creator programs, really important. I think the one thing I'll say about this is when I worked on Echo Combat, we had Ninja and Shroud play our game, and it didn't really move the needle, right? Because the players don't, the audience just wants Fortnite or whatever, right? And if you have 100 small creators, I take that anytime over one large, disengaged, creator, right? And Gorilla Tag started that way. All of our million-plus subscribers, or million-plus YouTubers, all started at Gorilla Tag with no followers. And Orion Drift, we're doing the same thing. We're encouraging creating programs around it. And the last pillar is ship your prototypes, right? I talked about the order, but let's say you spend 3 months or 9 months on something, and you put it out there, it's bad. Well, you probably wasted 8 months, right? So in Gorilla Tag, for example, we put a prototype of a skate park out there, and people really liked it, so we spent a couple more months iterating on it to make it even better. Orion Drift is an open world game. So what we do is we have, we put under construction and tape. They can still go and play in it, and they're excited. They love seeing the art get refined. They go check out every update. They're like, oh, did this section get updated? I love this artist. I love what they do with this section. They appreciate it. And plus, they can give you feedback to make it better and guide, your experience. I would be remiss not to kind of point out, integrity and safety, You can't have a healthy community. And it was harder in the early days, and I think, now there's a lot of tools out there that will make it better, or make it easier as developers to do it. These are just a couple examples of, tools that we use, but there's so many out there like KD, age-appropriate experiences with parental controls, right? So if you're a parent and you're like, I want to lock down even further or open up more because I'm paying attention, great, right? And GDP, which is AI voice moderation, it's huge. Because before, if we got a report, there'd be a huge delay in when people would get banned, right? What happened is the people that had this happen to them, they would probably leave and never come back. Or they see these people keep doing things, and what are you going to do? And then we would just ban them for a long time. But the reality is, for people under 18, they're still learning how to be a good human. They take examples from their friends doing bad things, and so they do it. So now what we can do is, if someone is being a jerk, we can put them on timeout. We bring them to a room and say, you're being a jerk, right? A lot of times people, that's all they need. They just need a warning, right? But maybe happens again. Now you can do a mute, right? And I believe we can teach people how to be better gamers, and I hope the next generation of gamers aren't, the Halo kids, growing up, right? So I think the one thing that I want to say, though, the takeaway from this talk is reflecting back on the struggles of XR and growing it, and VR is I think building big games in VR and XR is hard. It's risky. Building the experience that you think XR deserves, but maybe the money's not there. That's hard to do, and it's hard to find a great partner, and it exists out there. But that doesn't mean big games can't exist. It doesn't mean great experiences can't exist. And I think the way to do it is with 1, maybe 5 people, building something cool, build it fast. Don't be scared to show it off to people. Find the 20 people, find the niche. Find the people that would love this experience, right? You know, who knew that table tennis would be just, you know, so popular for that group of people, right? Find your community, nurture them, talk with them, and grow it. Thank you.
So we have time for questions. Let's open it up. I'll go over here first.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I had a question about, I think something, I'm not sure quite how to ask it, but like when it comes to bringing a community in more, what are maybe some pitfalls that you guys have like stumbled into over the years of like, oh, we kind of brought them in a way that maybe we weren't initially thinking about, and it's like maybe...
Yeah, pitfalls?
Yeah, just
Sure.
pitfalls, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we get bad actors. I don't know if that was me. We get bad actors who just want to steal the game, rip assets, show it off. We get people leaking. But here's the trick, like, if you leak it yourself, then who cares, right? So that's what we did. It was like, if we're ever going to put a build out, you know, we work with our comms and marketing team. It's like, all right, find a way to show this off, which also is a great way to grow creators at the same time, right? Because you don't have to embargo everything. You're just like, hey, you guys get access to showing things off, and we will promote you and do your things, and you can grow these small creators while you're developing, so when the game finally launches, they've already built up a following, and people are already waiting at that server door to rush in.
Any other questions? I had one for you, if that's okay, because I thought this was one of the most heartfelt discussions today. I'm a gamer myself. You mentioned creators. Who are some of your favorite creators out there? Who should we be following, if you can place some favorites?
I mean, I love all my creators equally. I don't know if there's any in the audience, but I mean, there's so many great ones that have helped push Gorilla Tag to like new heights, from K9 and J-Man Curly and Elliot, and I don't know, it's incredible, like, to see the dedication and skill of how fast they can turn around like assets and videos, and like all the hard work they do to do it. Like, people say, oh, I want to be a YouTuber, but like it's hard work. You know, I think I couldn't do what they do, for sure. Like, it's skill.
Great. We got one more question over here.
In the beginning of your talk, thanks, by the way, it was a great talk, very inspiring. You mentioned that you worked on several Sony titles, and you said sometimes you're blending different genres, trying to create something new out there in the AAA space, and then you kind of posited that as opposed to the kind of community-driven development that's going on now. What I was wondering is, for Orion Drift and the other games that you guys are building, do you guys use other games outside of VR? Are there different reference points that you guys use, or do you literally just start with, oh, sports, let's create something in XR and think bottom up, or are there also, you know, these kind of perspectives from other titles?
Yeah, sure. Well, Echo shut down, and I was sad, and I went to my other two, you know, colleagues, and I said, listen, this is crazy, but we got to build another game. We got to do it. We can't let the sports genre, you know, like this die. And they said, you know, let's do it. And Carousel tweeted, we won't let there be 00G sports. And so, you know, that's all it took. But yes, so to answer your question, no, it's just a gem of an idea. It's you know, what's the foundation, right? And go from there and see if you can find a product market fit. If it, you know, we've pivoted multiple times throughout the development of it, and that was based on the feedback of the community of what they liked and what they don't like.
We got another question? They keep on coming, and we still got some time.
Thank you for the talk. I'm really curious, how did you come up with the idea of Gorilla Tag?
The name Gorilla Tag?
No, like the game itself. Because I tried it, and by this day, I'm still struggling to be good at it, but it looks cool. But I was just curious, how did you came up with that?
You're struggling to be good at. Yeah, I think at our age, that's you just give up. No, no. Carousel is actually really good. I'm trying to be really good. Carousel was the creator of the mechanic. He was inspired, by Echo, but really, it was just hard iteration and what he believed would be cool, and he took a leap of faith and it landed. And on the tag mechanic itself, once he had the motion, he was like, this could be fun. And then someone in his Discord said, oh, we should do an infection mode. He had no idea what an infection mode was, but that's what's great about having community.
All right, another question.
Thanks for the talk, Dave. The game testing in Vegas, how much lead time did you give, and did you house them, and how did that play out, and who came up with that idea?
Sorry, for the betas, what do you mean lead time?
How did you get everyone there to Vegas?
To Vegas?
Yeah, well, you were saying.
I think if you have something that resonates with people, they'll be excited about it, right? Like, I still believe that if, just going to the table tennis, if you know those people personally and you said, hey, and there's leagues all over the place, hey, come here, show up, people will come. That's what I believe. I mean, it worked. The lead time was like 3 months.
All right, I'm headed over here. We've got a few more minutes, and the crowd is getting big for the next event, so this is great.
Hi, thanks. Great presentation. I was wondering if you could tell a little bit more about your moderation journey. I, too, have a child who plays Gorilla Tag, and I've had the joy of seeing how it's grown over time. It's great to see everything that's been added and how the game has changed, but the community's also changed, and norms and behaviors for those communities are different. I did have the joy of having my child tell me that she went to another person in the game and said, like, so we don't share our ages and where we're from, just advice, right? How have you been handling that? And I did notice your AI as well.
How have we, sorry, I had a hard time hearing.
Moderation. How did you handle your moderation journey?
The moderation
of
journey.
your community. And I've heard you talk about going to the AI solution at the
AI
end,
solution,
right?
yeah.
But where did you start? And what led you there?
Well, I mean, when did we start? We've been working on it, like, I think when the game really started growing, the three of us, and I think this was before we had 10 people, we said we had to invest in integrity and safety, and we knew it was going to be a long journey because both David Yee and myself, worked on those features and saw, how the sausage is made. But it's hard, right? I mean, if you think about just like moderation at human scale, and you have millions of, users playing your game, you'd probably need more moderation than is possible, right, for that, a company can afford. And so you have to be creative, but the engineering solutions to do it, take time. But we've started from the beginning, and I feel like this year we're really landing on something that I'm pretty proud of.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dave. Great presentation, and thank you all for staying tuned. We'll be back in just a moment.